Hey, Tommy, how you doing?
Doing good, Johnny. It's been too long, man. How are you?
Good. Been good. You sound good. How have you been?
Doing all right, man. You guys currently on the road. You were in Michigan last night, in Detroit at the Fillmore tonight in Madison, Wisconsin. Can you describe the feeling that you and the guys have being back on stage again after being cooped up for the past few years with the pandemic?
Oh, man. If anything will teach you to appreciate what you do for a living, it is definitely a pandemic and being locked in your home. I don't know. I haven't had this much energy in a long time. I think it's been all pent up, and it's just been like dynamite every night.
I don't know. Every time I've seen you, you've had plenty of energy when I see you on stage, so I can't imagine what it's like now if you're saying there's more.
Yeah. There's a whole nother reserve tank I didn't know about.
Now, I know Asking Alexandria is no longer on the tour due to singer Danny Worsnip having the throat issue, but was this a co-headlining venture, and was nothing more supporting Asking, or vice versa?
It was a co-headline, so night to night we would be switching. It just depended on the market.
Now, the reason I asked that, I was originally going to ask this question thinking you guys were still touring, and I thought that maybe you guys were supporting them. And I was going to ask you, did Asking know what they were getting into, having to follow nothing more?
Well, I don't know if they knew. Actually, I don't know if they knew much about us at all. I think that was their first time to see us live. So they were definitely, I think that was our first time to watch them live, like all the way through as well. So we both were kind of first experience. And when we first met them, this was years ago, we had like kind of a quick casual meeting, and I don't know, got kind of a weird vibe. So I didn't know if we were actually going to like the guys or not, to be honest. And then, years later we get on this tour together and we actually hit it off and really got along really well. They were super complimentary of our show, and we were of theirs as well. They sounded great every night. It was unfortunate that Danny came down with such he had like 2 ear infections, fluid in his lungs, and laryngitis. So that's like a knockout punch for a singer, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my first time seeing Nothing More was at Rock on the Range many years ago. I guess they call it Sonic Temple now. But I was finally, impressed because I finally saw a band that was doing something new on stage that I hadn't seen before. You guys have a killer live show.
Yeah, man. We were a band for many years before we had a record deal, and we were playing like dive bars and just really, dumpy clubs. And the only way we survived in that environment with no like day jobs was to figure out ways to entertain people, and use our instruments in different ways, or kind of invent new kind of stage performance pieces. And that's really all we had, because people didn't know our music back then. When people know your music and you're played on the radio and you have hits on YouTube, you have the luxury of people showing up singing your songs. And we really didn't have that luxury for a long time. So I think we really built our chops on the road by necessity, because we had to survive.
Well, you guys have always been a very self-contained band. You guys record and produce your own albums. And if I'm not mistaken, your bassist, Daniel, he's the guy that actually builds your stage props. What's the backstory on the scorpion tail and the Tron bassinator props?
Yeah, our bass player, Daniel, he's the mad scientist in the band. Really, the story behind the props started kind of when I was along the lines of what I was just mentioning, when we were playing the dive bars and the dumpy clubs back in the day. I told Dan when I started singing, because I was the drummer originally for years, when I started singing, I wanted to bring a few drums up front with me, because I couldn't fully let go of the drum set, because I'm really a drummer at heart. So I had a kick drum on legs and a snare drum, and I wanted to stand on them. And so they were too wobbly. And so Dan started learning how to weld just kind of in the spare time for fun. He was always into mechanical stuff. And he built this thing that we call Tron, which is just kind of like our pet name for it. This big metal cage that my drums would go in, so I could stand on them and jump on them. And that first little thing that he built kind of led to all these other kind of scrap metal art pieces, if you will, that he started building. And one of them was what we call the scorpion tail, which is a big, kind of like an effects controller that I pull out a drum Tron and kind of operate it like this Mad Max style, like lever system with buttons and levers. And basically it's just like a glorified guitar pedal where I'm affecting and remixing what Dan and Mark are playing in real time, almost like as if I'm a DJ and they're the records, you know? Yeah, that's kind of where some of that came from.
Well, I've seen it live, and it's quite amazing, but I know you guys are going to be coming to town here in Grand Rapids at the Upheaval Festival. That's in July, and I'm really looking forward to the show. Is there anything new that you guys have created to bring to the stage that maybe you can hint about without giving it away?
Yeah, Dan has actually been working on this project for about 2 years. He's been building this like drum robot that's actually kind of like a lighting rig mixed with drums and whatnot. Unfortunately, we didn't get it out on this run. There was a lot of logistical challenges that we ran into post-pandemic when it came to space, expenses, logistics. And the thing that he built was just too big for the co-headline tour that we were on. It just wasn't going to fit with another headliner and wasn't going to fit in the semi-truck with all the other gear. And so it's probably going to be out the next headline tour that we have. That's kind of the next big piece that we've been working on. But in the meantime, we are basically just playing new music. We have, a killer light show, and just we've been really leaning into and focusing on just the sonics of everything. People have been saying that we sound better than they've ever heard us in the last 10 years. So it's all sounding and feeling really awesome.
Well, with the downtime of the pandemic and you guys making the new album, were you able to rehearse a lot more?
We were towards the end, but most of the pandemic, we were actually in different states. I was living in Louisiana, and Mark and Dan were living in Texas, and our drummer Ben was living in Arizona. So we were doing a lot of, back and forth traveling and doing a lot of Zoom sessions like most people. And kind of adapted and picked up some kind of useful skills moving into the future, just learning how to make a lot of the portions of our album while not being in the same physical location with each other. So we did that a lot.
Well, before you guys released the new single, Tired of Winning, you released another track for the fans, Turn It Up Like. And on your website, I saw a t-shirt that says F the Internet, which seemed to be the theme of Turn It Up Like. What's your beef with the Internet, Johnny?
Oh, the Internet hurt my feelings. No, it just, of course, it's a little tongue-in-cheek. It's a little sarcastic, a little ironic. Basically, it's not really the Internet that we have a beef with. It's how people act on the Internet. It's what the Internet has brought out of people. Obviously, we use the Internet just as much as anyone else. In the digital age, we pretty much have to. I love YouTube as much as anyone else. I go down rabbit holes all the time, and it has so many great aspects to it. But, a lot of times nowadays when you post things that even just 10 years ago wouldn't even be considered half controversial or even 1/100th offensive at all, it seems like well, here comes the Internet. It's just like the keyboard warriors come out in their hordes and just try to slay you with words and cancel you. And I think during the pandemic, it just heightened all of the negative aspects of the Internet because we were all so hyper focused on the Internet because that's pretty much what we had when we were all locked up and cooped up. And I think it just displayed like a side of humanity that was just really disappointing to see. I like to have pride in my fellow man and my fellow countrymen, the people that you literally share a country with. And it was just like, wow, like my sense of pride in just the people I'm surrounded with. It's like if aliens were to attack or an invading country, I wouldn't feel that confident, in the people that are inhabit around us. So it was kind of disappointing. So we just decided to, point it out and kind of poke fun at it. And, what can you do, right?
I think the Internet's given a microphone to a lot of people who didn't need a microphone. You know what I'm saying?
I think you're right.
Have you guys settled on a name for the new Nothing More album yet?
Yeah. So we're about to drop a new track in about 2 weeks that we'll be playing in the next tour. It's a song called Spirits, and that is going to be the title track of the album. So the album will be called Spirits.
And when will fans be able to get their hands on the full length?
Sometime in the fall. We're still waiting on a date from the suits at the label, with all the strategy and the rollout and everything. But if it were up to us, we would have dropped it already, but you know how it goes. So still waiting on an official date, but should be in the fall.
Well, man, I tell you, Tired of Winning is a great song, and I think you may have another number one on your hands.
Oh, well, I hope you're right.
I really feel, I've always liked the band. You guys are excellent musicians. You're a great singer. You guys are like players. Other bands want to watch you guys play. But I think for the average person, I think this is one of the most accessible songs that's come from the band to a broader audience outside of the genre. You know what I'm saying? Right. Yeah, a lot of our music takes a few listens, or it kind of takes a digestion period. Kind of like go, oh, okay, I get this band, or I understand the depth of the lyrics, or, kind of where they're coming from. But that's great to hear, especially from a radio guy. No, I was talking to one of your label reps recently, and I just said, man, this song is really great. I think it's going to really push them where they need to be. Because you guys, when people see you, they're convinced. But it's the ones that haven't seen you, or they're using radio and YouTube to try to convince,
Excuse me, I would just say, that is the, always the challenge for bands. Because like you said, there are bands who have that kind of immediate, like, sugar and then don't have the meat to back it up. And then there's bands with a ton of meat, but they just never get, like you said, they don't reach their full potential because they can't get that quick, digestible listen, those radio hits. So I hope you're right.
Well, it's a great song, and I really like that breakdown later in the song too, man. It's just awesome, man. You guys are such talented musicians. I enjoy listening to you guys, and I definitely enjoy seeing the band live, and I can't wait till the next time.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate all that. And, we love Grand Rapids. We were hoping we would catch it on this run. I'm sure we'll catch it here, on a headline tour sometime that we can really do our thing. But we always have a good time out there. So
now I noticed both the videos for the two songs you guys have done was directed by Rob and August. Knowing you guys control your recordings and stage setups, how involved in the creative process is Nothing More when you go to make the videos?
Oh, very involved. I've been on the music video side. I'm pretty much, so involved to the point that I ended up directing one of our videos. I've edited a few of them. I've done color corrections. And this was the first time we worked with a director that I really didn't feel like I had to interject myself too much, because, and that's no diss to past directors or anything, who are all very talented, all the people we've worked with. But I think that we just had a very natural vision that was very eye to eye when we started working with Robin, that he was just doing a lot of the moves that I would have done myself, or just kind of similar mindset. So when we dove into the kind of the storyboard process and we were discussing ideas, it was just like creative fireworks. Like we were kind of going back and forth, and he really pulled a lot out of very little. We were on a tight budget and very little time, and I'm excited to hopefully work with them again in the future. We just got along great.
Well, I noticed both videos, even though being directed by the same person, they were totally different and great on their own merit.
Yeah, that's that was kind of one of our goals. We didn't want to just do two performance videos that ended up feeling the same and forgettable, and so we kind of just went down the rabbit hole with them. And it's I'm excited to see what we do coming up here in the future, which, speaking of that, I actually need to read a treatment that he sent me. My manager keeps hitting me up about it. It's for our next single that we're going to drop. So I'm excited about that.
Now, did you realize, I know you've been doing this a long time, but next year is the 20th anniversary.
Next year's 20th anniversary for
Nothing More. Didn't you guys come together in 2003?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I know most people only know you from around 2014 on, but there is that time before that. This would make it your 20th anniversary, at least with you and the guitar player.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was back in, that was like my freshman or sophomore year in high school.
Jeez.
So, yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier.
That, man. Making me feel old.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you played drums for quite a stretch in Nothing More before you came out front. What was the transition like being a drummer? And obviously you loved it because you want to bring drums out front with you, making that change to fronting the band and singing.
It was very uncomfortable and very awkward for maybe a year and a half to 2 years, to be completely honest. I had almost a phobia level fear of public speaking and being in front of anybody with a microphone. It just scared the hell out of me. So I would not sleep at night if I had to present a presentation in front of the class the next day in school. Like, no joke, wouldn't sleep the whole night. So I had like a high level of anxiety surrounding anytime I did that. But I knew deep down that I really wanted to do it, like in my heart of hearts. And my mom always taught me growing up that, the only way to get through a fear is to expose yourself to it over and over and over until you're no longer afraid. That's really the only way through. And after you do that, she always taught me, like, it turns from being scary to fun. Like, there's this switch. And sure enough, she was right. After a year and a half, 2 years, I stuck it through, and the guys believed in me enough to let me do it. And now I get to do, to me, the best job in the world. And now I love it. But I had to go through that time period where it really was not fun for a long time.
Well, there are a lot of great singers that have done that. Chris Cornell was a drummer. Jonathan Davis was a drummer. And it seems like when those drummers come out front, they're usually really great. And you definitely follow in that suit.
That is funny how it does seem to happen.
Well, hey, I have a good friend by the name of Corey, and you actually met him before. He was a runner for a show that I had booked you guys on back in Indiana called The Big Growl a few years ago. He and his daughter are really into music, and he's taken her to concerts, and Nothing More is on their list of things to do this year. I told him I was going to talk to you, and his daughter Riley came up with a great question for you. She said, when you went through a lot at one point, as well as other members in the band, leading up to your self-titled album, what kind of emotional and mental toll does it take on you to sing songs about your personal life?
It's a good question. I think when the songs are fresh, it definitely has more of an impact. Most of the time, the way we write these songs, there's a kind of a therapeutic release to them more than a depressing kind of dragging me back into it feeling. So it's more of a vent than it is like a wallowing in it kind of a feeling. So that's one thing. But also, when you sing these songs night after night after night, there is an element to it that is just being a professional and just delivering music to people for them and not for you. So I don't really indulge in the negative emotions of it. I touch them just enough to feel enough to perform, but I don't do the full deep dive. So that's also an element. There is a song though, God Went North, which was about my mother when she passed away from cancer and had kind of a pretty rough battle for the last 2 years. And that one we just never play live. That one's just too deep for me, too dark, and when I hear it here and there, every time I break down in tears. And so I kind of want to keep it that way. I want it to be special. I don't want to turn it into a song that I just have to kind of get numb to play through and perform for people. And to me, it's kind of just a living memorial or monument in my mind and in my soul for my mother. And kind of just want to keep it that way,
Well, thank you for sharing that, and I'm very sorry to hear of your loss.
Yeah, we all go through it at one point or another, and I'm just thankful I had as great of a mother as I did, and I still feel her when I sing a lot of these songs, so it's all good.
Well, this last question, I'm going to tie back to something you hit on earlier about aliens. My buddy Corey wanted to know, if aliens landed, who would you choose to represent us as humans?
Oh, that's a great question. Oh, man. Who would I choose? This is going to sound like an incredibly narcissistic answer. I hope that it does not come across this way, but I'm kind of one of those people that likes to do things myself. It's hard for me to delegate at times because I'd rather just do the job myself or say the words how I want to say them, very hands-on like that. So I'd prefer to talk to him myself. It may be for selfish reasons too. I'd just be curious. So
all right.
I'll do it.
Well, Jonny, I just want to say thanks again for taking the time. I look forward to seeing you at the Upheaval Festival here in Grand Rapids in July, and much success with the new album. Very excited to hear the whole thing.
Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate the good combo and looking forward to rocking Grand Rapids.